In the village of Omurubo, where two mighty rivers carved the land, there lived a man everyone knew as the Wise Fool. His real name was forgotten over the years, like a faint whisper carried off by the wind. The Wise Fool was neither old nor young, neither rich nor poor. He dressed simply, with a worn hat that slouched on his head, showing his unusual wisdom. He wasn't like other villagers. The Wise Fool saw things differently, finding humor in the ordinary and wisdom in the absurd. His words could turn sorrow into laughter and fear into courage. Many laughed at him, yet no one doubted his wisdom. In fact, his words were often just what the villagers needed to hear. One year, the village faced a terrible drought. Rivers shrank to mere trickles, and the crops withered in the sun's relentless blaze. The earth cracked, and the villagers' hopes seemed to dry up along with him. The village elder, a stern but fair man, finally sought out the Wise Fool. "Wise Fool," the elder called, as the villagers gathered around. "Our land suffers, our people are growing weak. What should we do?" The Wise Fool, with a glimmer in his eyes, tilted his head as if listening to a secret. "I shall consult the Ancient Ones," he said solemnly, and then, without further explanations, he climbed the tallest hill, overlooking the village. He stood there, arms opened, seemingly speaking to the winds. When he returned, he announced, "The winds have spoken. Dig deeper wells, but first dig deeper within yourselves." The villagers scratched their heads. Was he playing one of his tricks? Was there meaning hidden in his words? But they trusted him, as always. They dug deeper than before and soon discovered an underground aquifer that quenched the village thirst. Yet his words had touched them in a deeper way too. They remembered their inner strength and resilience, and hope blossomed anew in Omurubo. Not long after, a wealthy merchant from a neighboring town visited the Wise Fool, troubled despite his vast fortune. "O Wise Fool," he said, "I have gold and wealth beyond measure, but happiness eludes me. What should I do?" The Wise Fool gave him a small amused smile. "You've counted your gold, but have you counted your blessings?" he asked. The merchant was taken aback. That night, he sat by a fire and began to think of all he had: health, family, friends, and a peaceful life. With each blessing he counted, he felt a strange warmth filling his heart. The merchant returned to his town, joyful and content, having learned that gratitude could be more valuable than gold. Word of the Wise Fool's reputation spread far and wide, and some people from distant lands came to hear his unusual advice. His fame even reached the ears of a young prince from a distant kingdom. The prince, who was preparing to take the throne, sought the Wise Fool, eager for guidance. "Tell me, Wise Fool," the prince said with respect, "how can I be a great ruler?" The Wise Fool looked at the prince and chuckled softly. "A wise ruler listens to the fool, for in foolishness lies hidden wisdom," he said. The prince, though puzzled, pondered these words deeply. He took them to heart and ruled with compassion, consulting people from all walks of life, even those who others thought foolish or unimportant. His kingdom became a prosperous, peaceful land, with its fairness and open heart at its core. As the years passed, the Wise Fool grew older, his hair graying and his walk slower, but his wit and wisdom remained sharp. One evening, sensing his time was near, he gathered the villagers around him for one last piece of advice. "Wise Fool," they asked, "what is the secret to your wisdom?" With a twinkle in his eyes, he leaned close and whispered, "I have learned to see the world through the eyes of a fool, with wonder, curiosity, and the willingness to question everything. For only those who are unafraid to be seen as foolish can discover true wisdom." And with that he smiled, closed his eyes, and drifted peacefully, leaving the village forever changed. The Wise Fool's legacy lived on in Omurubo, reminding generations that sometimes the most profound wisdom is disguised as foolishness, and that true insight often lies in seeing the world simply and with an open heart. After the wise fool's passing, the village of Omurubo felt his absence keenly. His words still echoed in their hearts, but life without his warm, quirky presence was different. People spoke of him often, his stories and sayings taking on new layers of meaning as time went on. One day, a young girl named Adanna, who had grown up listening to the wise fool's tales, felt a longing to carry on his legacy. Though only 16, Adanna was clever, kind-hearted, and known for asking questions that made even the wisest elders stop and think. She decided that, like the wise fool, she would learn the world's secrets and help her people. But first, she wanted to understand how he had gained such wisdom. Adanna's mother, an old friend of the wise fool, told her about a mysterious journey he had once undertaken. He set off to seek wisdom in distant lands. She said, her eyes distant with memory, but no one knows what he found there. He only returned one day, laughing to himself and saying, "Sometimes the answer to life's greatest questions is right under your nose." Inspired, Adanna decided to follow in his footsteps, believing that she, too, must journey far to find wisdom. She packed a small bag, tied her sandals, and set out toward the mountains, determined to learn as much as she could. Her first stop was in a neighboring village, where she heard of an old healer named Mama Onika, known for her strange but effective remedies. Adanna approached the healer, who was busy crushing herbs under a banyan tree, and asked, "Mama Onika, what is the secret to curing sickness?" The healer looked at Adanna with a glint of humor in her eyes. "Child," she said, "the secret to healing is knowing when not to cure sometimes. The heart simply needs rest and time. Sometimes a little laughter does what no herb can." She then gave Adanna a handful of herbs and told her, "Take this back with you, but remember, the true medicine is in the way you use it." Thanking the healer, Adanna continued on her journey, thinking deeply about Mama Onika's words. As she walked, she saw her village through new eyes and wondered if she had always missed the small acts of kindness and wisdom around her. Next, she journeyed to the bustling town of Amaji, where merchants, artists, and travelers from all around gathered. Here she encountered a skilled potter named Boma, whose hands molded the clay as if it were an extension of his soul. "Master Boma," Adanna asked respectfully, "how do you create such beautiful poetry?" The potter chuckled, wiping his hands. "Little one, beauty is not in the clay, it is in the hands that shape it, and the heart that sees it." He handed her a piece of unformed clay. "This too has beauty, but only if you look for it." Boma's words stayed with her, reminding her of the wise fool's lessons about seeing beyond the surface. Days turned into weeks as Adanna traveled from place to place, meeting people who taught her invaluable lessons. She learned about patience from a fisherman waiting for his catch, about resilience from a widow who raised her children alone, and about love from an elderly couple who had weathered many storms together. But one of her most profound encounters came when she met a hermit. One lived in a cave at the edge of the forest. The hermit, a woman with sharp eyes and a soft smile, greeted. "What brings you so far into the wilderness?" "I seek wisdom," Adanna replied, "to help my people as the wise fool once did." The hermit laughed, her voice echoing softly through the cave. "Ha, but wisdom is not something you can hold or find in a faraway place. True wisdom is found in the act of living itself, in every mistake, in every kindness, in every small miracle you experience." Adanna sat with the hermit for hours, listening to her stories of life, of learning from sorrow and joy alike. She realized that the wise fool's wisdom had come from the same source, living fully, seeing deeply, and never ceasing to ask questions. Finally, as the sun began to set, Adanna thanked the hermit and began her journey back to Omurubo, her heart and mind filled with newfound insight. The answers to life's greatest questions were really right under her nose, hidden in the ordinary beauty of daily life. When she returned, the villagers welcomed her eagerly, and Adanna began to share the lessons she had learned. Slowly, she became known as Adanna the Wise, a guide for her people, much like the wise fool had been, and though she was young, her heart was open and her mind was sharp, just as the wise fool had been.